and I know that this one is going to be no exception to that rule. That is a loud car. Because I've just been begging to feel something. Emily Henry just keeps on creating incredible fictional men that just keep on raising the bar for my real love life, and honestly, I would be angry at her if it wasn't for the fact that I was just giggling and kicking my feet and twirling my hair while reading this book, and it was a great time. Hello everybody, it's Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm coming at you with the mid-year book freakout tag. This is such a favorite video on booktube, and I totally understand why, because it's always so much fun to see what you've accomplished in the first part of the year and then what you want to do in terms of reading in the second part of the year. I feel like I will have a lot of things to say, so without any further ado, let's just jump right into this tag. So obviously the first question of the tag is, what is the best book that you've read this year so far? I've actually already made an entire video about this on my channel, so if you want to go and check out the top 5 books that I've read in 2022 so far, you can go and check it out up here. But I will very quickly just mention these 5 books right now. In no particular order from my shelves, we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry, Flamefall by Rosario Munda, and The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. If I am completely honest, this one might actually be my favorite book of the year so far, but I still haven't like completely decided yet. And then I also really loved Still Life by Sarah Winman, as well as Iron Widow by Jiran J. Shao. So if you want to hear all of my thoughts about all of these books, you can go and check out that video. These are definitely like my favorite books that I've read this year so far, and I really loved all of them, and I would highly recommend them all. Then the second question of this tag is, what is the best sequel that you've read so far this year? I would once again mention Flamefall by Rosario Munda, because that was honestly such a wild ride. But I also really want to talk about The Girl in the Tower, as well as The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden. These are book 2 and 3 into the Winter Night trilogy by this author, the first one being The Bear and the Nightingale. It's a very great historical fantasy series inspired by Russian folklore. It has great characters and great atmosphere, and I had read the first book a couple of years ago, but then I never kept on going with the series. But when I finally reread the first one and then read the second and third book this year, it quickly became like honestly one of my favorite historical fantasy series. And these are definitely 2 of my favorite sequels that I've read this year so far, just because the first book is very slow paced, and so that's why I hadn't kept on going with the series, because I wasn't sure that I was going to enjoy it. But the second and the third book really captured my attention, and I could not put them down. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this series. It's really great. The next prompt of the mid-year book freakout tag is, what is a new release that you haven't read yet but you really want to? And that book for me is I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. This is our pick for the Thieves Book Club for the months of May and June, and we're having our live show on July 1st if you want to join us. So that's why I still haven't read this one. I was waiting to get closer to the live show so that I would remember everything properly. But yeah, I've been so excited to read this book. I've been dying to just start it ever since it came out in May and I received my copy. So yeah, cannot wait to read this. I just love Casey McQuiston. I love all of their books, and I know that this one is going to be no exception to that rule. That is a loud car. So yeah, as I was saying before I got rudely interrupted, I have loved all of Casey McQuiston's books, and I know that I'm going to greatly enjoy this one as well, so I can't wait to dive into it. The next prompt is, what is your most anticipated book release for the second part of the year? I have 2 for this prompt. The first one is completely unoriginal, and I feel like everybody and their mother has been talking about this book, but it is Babel by R.F. Kuang. Of course, it sounds so incredible. I'm so excited to finally read it. I've pre-ordered it, and honestly I feel like I'm going to jump right into it the second that I receive my copy. And then the second book, the one that I'm honestly probably the most excited about, is Sea Sparrow by Kristen Cashore. This is the 5th book into the Graceling series. In case you don't know, this is like a YA fantasy series. It has been one of my favorites ever since I was like 14 years old, and so I'm very excited for this next installment, and I just cannot wait to be back into this world and with all of these characters that I just absolutely adore. So yeah, I want to say these are like my 2 most anticipated book releases for the rest of the year. I definitely have more than that, but these are the 2 that really comes to mind and that I am the most excited for. Then the next question is a little bit more negative, and it is about your biggest disappointment of the year so far. I have to say, like, 2022 so far has been like an okay year. I haven't found like a lot of new favorites, which is a little bit of a bummer, and a couple of books have been disappointing for sure. But the two that really popped into my brain when I read that question are two books that I read recently, and these two books are The Romantic Agenda by Claire Kahn, as well as The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reid. I had very high expectations and hopes for these two, and sadly my expectations were not met, which is very sad. This one is a romance book featuring ace characters, so that's why I was super excited to read it, but sadly the romance was just fine. I didn't really like the characters, and I want to say that the thing that I enjoyed the most in this was like the representation, but other than that it wasn't like really enjoyable. And when it comes to The Wolf and the Woodsman, I feel like the hype really got me for this one, because I had heard so many people talking about how incredible the romance was, how lush the fantasy world was, and honestly I was given like 2.5 kisses and a very meandering plot that did not really go anywhere. So yeah, I was very disappointed by this book, and I honestly I'm still a bit salty about it because I was really expecting to love it and I did not. And I was just really hoping when I got into this one to have this like great enemies to lovers romance with like so much angst and, you know, all of that jazz, and it just did not work for me. The next prompt was, what was your biggest surprise this year so far? And I have said it once and I will say it again, and I will say it, I feel like, until the end of the year. You are not done hearing me talking about this book and how much it surprised me, and that book is The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. Of course, I'm not going to go too far into details because I feel like I've been screaming about this book on every rooftops ever since I read it, and people might be like sick and tired of me talking about it. But honestly, I feel like one of the reasons why I actually enjoyed this book so much is because it surprised me so much, and because I was expecting to like enjoy it but not absolutely love it, and I did, and that was great. So yeah, this was definitely a surprise, thankfully the good kind of surprise. Then the next prompt is, who is your favorite new author? And that is either a debut author or an author that is new to you. And actually I want to talk about an author who I have read from before, but I hadn't realized like how much I love her books until I read her newest release a couple of weeks ago, and it just completely like blew my mind. And then I realized like that I actually really love this author, and I never talk about her as like one of my favorite authors, but I need to change that, and that author is Emily Henry. I have read all of her books and really enjoy them, and I had just never really realized that I enjoy her so much. But I guess that with this one, especially with Book Lovers, she has solidified herself as one of my favorite authors. So yeah, I guess she is the one. She's like my new favorite author, and I cannot wait for her next book. And then the next prompt is, who is your new favorite fictional crush? And I have to give it to Charlie Lastra from Book Lovers. He is just such a great character, and I fell in love with him instantly. And he is definitely like one of the greatest love interests that I've read about in a romance book this year, because I have read like kind of a lot of romance this year so far, and he is definitely the one that stands out to me. He is incredible and I love him. He is so precious and sweet, but also very hot. And yeah, I really appreciated him in this book. I loved how much he cared for the main character Nora, and I just think that he is spectacular. Emily Henry just keeps on creating incredible fictional men that just keep on raising the bar for my real love life, and honestly I would be angry at her if it wasn't for the fact that I was just giggling and kicking my feet and twirling my hair while reading this book, and it was a great time. The next prompt is, who is your newest favorite character? And I have to say that honestly every single character in Still Life by Sarah Winman would take this title, because I love them all so much. There is just such a great ensemble cast of characters into this historical fiction novel, and they have this like found family dynamic that I absolutely adored. I just absolutely fell in love with all of them, and their story was so emotional and so wonderful. So they definitely deserve the title of my favorite characters. All of them. They all belong on that pedestal. The next prompt is, what is a book that made you cry this year? And I have a couple of them actually. Most of my favorite books actually made me cry this year, and to be honest that's probably why they're some of my favorites, because I've just been begging to feel something. So yeah, I cried a lot in Still Life, I cried a lot in The Anthropocene Reviewed, I cried a lot in Book Lovers. There were happy tears, there were sad tears, the whole shebang, the whole range of emotion. And honestly, I am very curious to see what other books are going to make me cry this year, because if I cry more at any other book that I have cried while listening to The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green, I will be very, very surprised. Then question 11 is, what is a book that made you happy? And to be honest, the books that made me happy are also the ones that made me cry. So I could name all of them again, but I think that at this point you maybe get the gist. I also reread the Heartstopper graphic novel series this year because the TV show came out, and obviously amazing, incredible, perfect, makes me so happy, makes me also cry. I feel like every single year I somehow manage to sneak the Heartstopper graphic novel series into my mid-year book freakout tag, and to be honest, love that for me. Then the next prompt of this tag is, what is the most beautiful book that you bought or been given this year? And for me, it has to be this one. This is Greet Myths in Your Retelling by Charlotte Higgins with drawings by Chris O'Feely. And this is a book that I bought a couple of months ago, and I just really love it. I saw it in the bookstore and I was like, oh my gosh, you're coming home with me, because it's just so pretty. It has gold foil on it and this beautiful illustration on the cover, and it's basically a short story collection of feminist Greek mythology retellings, which, you know, I'm all here for, so I definitely had to get it, and it's just so stunning. I cannot wait to finally read it. And then finally, the last question of this tag is, what are the books that you need to read before the end of the year? To be honest, I'm kind of in a little bit of a reading slump right now, so it's kind of hard for me to decide which books I would prioritize because I don't really know what I want to read. I feel like everything that I start just really doesn't work with my mood. I don't know what is happening. I feel like I may be in like a little bit of a book hangover from Book Lovers and The Anthropocene Reviewed, because everything that I've picked up since these two has just not been hitting me the same. But I did do a summer TBR before the reading slump hit that is about reading all of the unread books on my shelves, so that is definitely a goal that I want to accomplish this year, especially for The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Like, it needs to happen. If I don't read it this year, I'm going to be so done with myself and so embarrassed. But also, like I said, I'm in a reading slump right now, so I'm not going to start a 1,000 pages long fantasy novel. But yeah, I really just hope that I can get to this one this year. So I guess this one is my priority. Will it happen? I honestly do not know at this point, because I don't really feel like reading anything right now, which is very sad. So yeah, if you have any like great recommendations to get myself out of a reading slump, please send them my way. I just need a book to make me feel as alive as Book Lovers did, because that was exhilarating and amazing, and yeah, I've just been craving that ever since. So if you have any great books recommendations, leave them in the comments down below. Alright, so here we are. We have reached the end of the mid-year book freakout tag. Like I said, so far 2022 has been kind of like a mixed bag, but I feel like I've seen this pattern in the last couple of years, in the sense that the first half of the year is not always the greatest for me, and then around the fall I just start reading so many incredible books, and then by the end of the year I don't even know which book to pick as my favorite. So this is what I'm hoping. I just really hope that the second half of the year is going to be filled with many amazing books. Let me know in the comments down below which book was your favorite of this year, or your most disappointing. If you want to rant, this is a safe space. You can share all of your opinions, and I hope that you really enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!